The agenda this week heard advice about passing on the family business, considered shifting labor rules in Ontario, and encountered theatre designed to provoke debate. The agenda's Week in Review begins with a conversation with former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. I want to ask you about your relationship with the other living prime ministers. I can recall many terrible fights between you and Joe Clark when you were both in public life, and yet he has written the introduction to your book. How is it that you two get along, given all of the fights that you two have had over the years?
But during the referendum, for example, I think it was on Charlottetown, he invited me to go and speak in his riding. And he came in Quebec, you know, on the referendum with the same platform than I. And he was elected in '72. And I was already Minister of Indian Affairs since 4 years. And he became my critics for the North and the parks. And Flora MacDonald became my critics for Indian Affairs. And I say one became the Prime Minister, the other one became the first woman to be Minister of Foreign Affairs, but they got trained attacking me. And I used to call them the Flora and the Fauna. And, you know, and it is... and we were friendly, as he said. And we can be opponents and not enemies.
Well, let me push that a little further. You obviously are okay with Kim Campbell. You gave her an appointment as Consul General of Los Angeles. How's your relationship with Brian Mulroney?
But I don't see him very often. He was the Prime Minister when I was in opposition, and I didn't have any big problem. The only fun I had, you know, I was teasing him in the House, try a third time against me. And he didn't like it. He said, I will have the Triple Crown, but he didn't go for the Triple Crown.
How about, in 1993 you're talking about, how about Stephen Harper? How well did you get on with him?
Not too bad. You know, we disagreed, but...
you disagree on everything?
Yes, but in politics. But he was doing what he wanted to do. I disagreed. But he was, you know, he was trying to do what he said he wanted to do.
Do you think...
And apparently he would say to his people around, asking them what Chrétien will do with this problem.
Really? You think he did that?
Many people told me the bureaucracy, but I wasn't there.
Okay. You know, when Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister, one of the things he said was, we're not Jean Chrétien Liberals anymore, we're not Paul Martin Liberals anymore, we're just Liberals, period, full stop. Do you think that your disagreements and your eventual falling out with Paul Martin over the years...
I had no problem.
Put the Liberals...
I was a leader. If there was a division, it was not me, I was a leader. They wanted to take over my job. And if they had been more polite, it would have been available in 2001. But Aline said 4 more years. So I thanked them. I said, for all those who are anxious to get into government, you know, I have to thank you because of your behavior. I was unhappy, and I received instruction to run again. And it was the best time of my term. And when I finished, I was at 60%, 62% approval rate in the land, higher than anybody else. That was the time to go. Quit while you're ahead.
I need to ask you about American politics right now, because I know you're great friends with the Clintons, and here's an excerpt from the book. I fear that Hillary's defeat and the arrival of the fanatical Trump mark the true end of the American empire. You can understand why Aline and I are so happy to have the Clintons as friends and almost as proud to be removed as far as possible from the unspeakable Donald Trump. It is very unusual for a former Canadian Prime Minister to talk about a current American president that way.
But I'm Jean Chrétien. You don't want me to not tell you what I don't believe.
I love that you tell us what you think, straight from the heart.
It's my job,
but
too. You know, I have experience.
It's not diplomatic, Monsieur Chrétien.
But I'm not I'm not a diplomat. I'm in retirement.
Do you make life more difficult for the current government when a former Prime Minister says this kind of thing?
I'm not working for the government. You want to know what I think, and you got it. You know, you want me to be nice? No, you know what? I felt obliged to say what I wrote. And, you know, because it's extremely troubling what is going on these days. And you see that. We said it last week and this weekend, too. You know, when you make people comfortable, when you applaud, when they shout, lock her up, lock him up. You know, no, we have a system of justice. You lock up those who have been found guilty of something. And you don't applaud that because you have to respect the rule of law. I was Minister of Justice. The rule of law is the base of democracy. And when you create the impression that, oh, we'll lock them up, you know, dictators does it. You know what happened to the journalist in Iran 10 days ago? He had not a very long trial. He was gone. So, you know, we have to be firm about the values of democracy and system of law and respect of the law. And it is my duty to speak like that. Because if we are bending for what? You know, I have no problem earning my living. And, you know, but probably some people will appreciate that I speak of my mind.
You always have.
Yeah, and I survived it for 40 years.
Indeed you did.
It's essential to stay positive and remember what families do for our communities. And I would say time and again, people pass the torch based on personal values, personal instincts about surviving in business. And all across this country, cities owe their worth, actually, to business families of goodwill and good skill staying. So I think it's more isolated than you think in terms of the real challenges.
Terry, when they come to you and they say, we are completely broken right now, we are completely dysfunctional, we don't know how to get this back on the rails, what do you do?
Family first. Okay? I really try and help them to focus on family, because usually what's wrong is they've been focusing exclusively on the business. The business will take it all, right? And then more if you let it. And so I teach them about family meetings, about talking about values and vision and mission and pulling back. Like for example, you know, I've had fathers call me and say, you know, can you fix my kid?
And you
he
say
doesn't
what?
work enough, right?
And you say what?
Dad's working 90 hours a week, and he doesn't understand why his son doesn't want to take over the business. Do you know any kids that are like 30 right now that want to work 90 hours a week? So, you know, we sit down, we talk.
Some do. We shouldn't make too many stereotypes here, but that's the issue, right?
There's a lot of people that want life balance, and that's a reasonable request. So that's
how often, in your experience, is it the founder who spent 90 hours a week building with his or her own two hands, and then he or she sees the next generation coming in, maybe a little more of an entitled life, maybe not prepared to put in those kind of long hours, maybe therefore a bit of a disappointment to the older generation?
I think it really depends, and it varies family by family and business to business. I've seen both sides of the spectrum where father puts blood, sweat, and tears into the business for multiple years, and the kids have seen that and been part of that and continue to do that because they don't want to let down their father or their mother, whomever sort of driving the business. And so they've continued to do that. And in other cases, there are some where, you know, their priorities on a personal level sometimes will creep in, and they'll be like, well, I can't work these hours, and we need to sort of find a bit of better balance. I don't think it's that they don't want the will to make that company successful. I think it's just there's different pressures sort of in this day and age and different priorities sometimes that come into play, and it's finding the right balance to juggle both the business, the personal, family life.
Another complexity that arises as well is it's not only that the younger generation or the next generation doesn't understand what's involved or doesn't want to step in or doesn't want to do 90 hours, or maybe they do. Sometimes the other flip side of the coin is the difficulty in the first generation actually letting go of the baton.
Absolutely.
And I find that's problematic in a majority of cases, actually, where
Just describe what that is. They don't want to let go. How does it manifest itself?
So, for example, in some people, not in all cases, where you've got a particular mindset as to this is how we've always done it. You know, and they want to continue on a particular way, not recognizing that markets are changing, people are changing, technology is changing. And so you have another generation that's coming up and saying, not only do we want to adhere to the culture and the values here, however the world's changing. And these are some of the things that we'd love to introduce to help not only the company become more successful, I mean, just to even sustain what it has. And then you have that original CEO or owner saying, well, hold it a second. That's not the way we've done it here in the past, or the way that we do things. And so there's problem on both parts. There's tension, but I do find for a lot of CEOs, it's very, very difficult, or owners, for them actually to fully let go. The other thing, if I may add, sometimes there's not the appropriate length of time for that process to be carried out. So it's like, well, here you go, son, the business is yours. You've worked here 5 years. Succession planning is a definite process, and it's a long one as well, for it to be healthy.
Jean
I
Michel.
could say, and it often doesn't happen for a variety of reasons, so I would just want to build on a couple of things that you said. There are a lot of things at play there. Sometimes their sense of self is so tied up in the business.
Identity.
Their identity is part of it. And they've been spending all of their time in their business and with their family, have nothing else outside in terms of interest, so it's a little bit harder to let go. What we're finding more now than at any other time in history is that for the people that are working in their business, they don't have the funds necessarily to be able to leave the business. So there's a fear in terms of what happens next when I don't have that income from me.
It's my retirement plan.
It's my retirement plan. It's
What we were just trying to do was paint a context to say there's a reason why I think a lot of people in Ontario, both employees and employers, are feeling jumpy. You know, we did lose 200,000 manufacturing jobs in that decade before the last census.
But we gained 500,000 jobs overall.
We did, but there were some people working in manufacturing industries, and there were some employers, right, who either had to contract or had to suspend business. So I think part of the reason this conversation is certainly a little edgy, that we can't just sort of take a step back and say, you know, why don't we plan out the best labor force policy over the next 10 years, is because I think everyone, families, employees, and business people are all feeling that they've been through a tough time and that they've been under pressure and that they need some relief. And then you see sort of there's different answers to what the relief might be depending on, you know, your perspective and the position you sit in. But it's not for no reason that we're sort of having this conversation in a fairly tight environment.
I understand. But Sheila, let me follow up on something Julie said, which was, she gave an example of a company that said, with all of these new provisions in place, it's going to cost me $150,000 more. That means there's two people I'm not going to hire. If the perverse effect of bringing in all of those labor changes, which you supported, is that fewer people are going to get hired, is it still a good thing to do?
I think we have to kind of step back from that. First of all, you know, before the $14 minimum wage came into effect, we were hearing from the CFIB, from other business lobby groups, that really the sky would fall.
And it didn't.
Instead, and it absolutely didn't. And instead, what we actually saw was continued employment growth in Ontario. So I think one of the things that Andrew's report really brings out is that we have to not only look at the quantity of jobs, we have to look at job quality. And so if we're looking at what kinds of jobs are we creating, and what's the impact on our overall economy, I think we have to actually look at those kinds of things and say, you know what, quantity is no longer the correct measure. We want to look at job quality, and we want to also look at the quality of low-income workers' lives, and that was what Bill 148 was squarely aimed at.
Now, would you acknowledge that there were a lot of Chicken Littles out there saying the sky was going to fall?
The sky is falling.
Okay,
Steve,
go ahead.
I do want to talk about that. I've talked to a lot of business owners about this, and what they told me is their business decisions won't necessarily be felt right away, because what the business owner will do when faced with difficult choices, the small business owner, they, as a last resort, will want to get rid of a job. So they'll do other things. They'll curtail expansion plans, maybe curtail hiring plans just to keep that job intact. But now we're going into January 1st. More costs. New federally imposed carbon tax, that's coming down the pipe. Canada pension plan increases starting January 1st. That's an added pressure. So I think the jury should still be out on the final economic impact. You have the macro version, but anecdotally on the ground, that's not what I'm hearing.
Clearly, the four of them had no difficulty expressing their points of view. What they seemed to be having difficulty doing from time to time was listening to anybody else's point of view, which is a lost art in this world today, apparently, and finding any shred of common ground.
For sure.
Is that a fair
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
summation?
actually in the play. We have cameras on the table picking up and providing a live feed of each of the actors' faces as they're participating in the discussion. And so what we're signaling to the audience there is, yes, we want you to listen to what people are saying, but we also want you to watch how people listen. And the actors, who are all, you know, so talented at just showing with a slight, twitch in their face. What's going on deep inside of them? There's a real narrative being told on the screens too, and about how we listen and then how we respond to people when we are threatened by what they're saying.
I want to ask you about Valerie, because she was there, I presume, opening night to watch the show. So she saw you playing her. Did she talk to you after the show? And?
She loved me.
She did, eh? Because?
I'm going to say, off the top of my head, it's because it's a human portrayal, because I don't really sit in judgment of her. I commit myself to the actions that she commits herself to, and I try to understand what's motivating her to
you nailed her character.
Behave. Well, she's nailable. She's an extroverted woman with a great deal of confidence, and she has a flavor that I could capture. I think a lot of good actresses could capture her, but I think she finds me sympathetic, and the way that I am approaching her. But there's something alchemical and mysterious about portraying a real person, because it's not the first time that I've been in a Port-Perot documentary play, and I've met the person that I'm portraying, and people often feel honored and flattered, even if it's a critical portrait, which, this is also, it is a critical portrait. We reveal this woman's project, and it's a dangerous one.
Well, would you say she's alt-right?
I would.
Like white supremacist, the whole 9 yards?
I don't know. I don't know about the whole 9 yards. I don't know if she's a white supremacist. But she wants to have an influence. She wants very badly to have an influence. Yeah, maybe she's not alt-right. I don't know. I actually don't know.
But she's clearly a Trump-supporting, small c conservative over there on the right wing of the spectrum.
She claims that she doesn't have any belief in the political system. That she's actually, she's outside of it. She's outside of the structure.
Strong views on immigration too.
Yeah, she does.
Especially the recent, immigration of Muslims. So, that's where it gets quite difficult. Her point of view.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review for this Friday, November 2nd, 2018. You can see all of those conversations in their entirety at tvo.org, or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, or on our Twitter feed. That's twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.